Good morning and good afternoon. Thank you for joining our part 2 webinar for the transformation to the new transportation system. So as my colleague Maya mentioned, so my name is Yogesh Bidkar from Westernacher. I will be accompanied with Andrea from SAP and Patrick from Sappi to take you all through the various, let's say, discussion topics. So with this, now I will hand it over to Andrea for taking us the journey of SAP Transportation Management.
Thank you, Yogesh. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea Ricciardi. I'm part of the Center of Excellence of SAP with a focus on logistics. Today, topic, before handing over to Yogesh, I would like to briefly talk about transportation management. As we saw in the first session of this webinar, transportation management is an holistic solution, basically supporting the full transportation procurement cycle, okay, and the transportation operation, either in the defining the capacity of you as a company you need to transport the goods between origin and destination, supporting the planning, the execution, and the freight settlement. Is a solution comprehensive, good for customers that want to ship goods, or as well freight forwarders. It is a solution very good for large but also mid-size dimensions. It's good for domestic and international transport. Either some companies use the solution for global transport, some other for regional, some other just for domestic transport. They manage inbound and outbound management, basically, and they use transportation management to support from very simple flow, like a direct full truckload between origin and destination, to a very complex flow with multimodal transportation with different parties involved in the movement of the material. With that said, I would like to spend 1 minute on the story of transportation solution from SAP. So SAP, of course, is in the software since 50 years. Okay, at the very beginning, between 1991 and 2004, SAP had embedded in the, I would say, in the ERP of our trade, the ECC part, a solution to support simple transportation operation called ELITRA, Logistic Execution Transportation. This solution was part of the backend system of SAP, and it was the only solution available from SAP embedded into SAP ECC. Since 2004, SAP decided to vest and to create from scratch a new solution with the characteristics of a best of breed. Basically, a solution that is able to match completely the transportation requirement of all our customers. And this is the origin of SAP Transportation Management, a solution, I would say, standalone, that can be deployed completely integrated with the backend system, but that has completely new revolutionary concept designed to support the transportation operation with transportation logic, completely decoupled from the ERP or the systems that are generating the transportation requirements, like sales order, like purchase order, like stock transport order. This solution was developed on the technology of the time, that was NetWeaver technology. And the solution has been upgraded different times in different release, okay, from the 5.0, then the 7.0, then the 8.0, and 9.0. So the solution grow in the time based on customer requirements. all the solution in supply chain, SAP is investing in the evolution of the solution. Every year you have a new version of the solution embedding new requirements. In 2015, SAP decided to launch on the market a new ERP that was called S4HANA, based on HANA technology. And this was another radical change on SAP software, and HANA technology changed completely the paradigm of software and also the accessibility of data in real time. And at that time, SAP decided to develop the solution for transportation management based on HANA technology and leaving the old NetWeaver technology. Since that time, again, we had several versions of the solution that was developed, enhanced, and many times, okay, as usual, every year a new coming with new enhancement, with new features, new functionalities, based on the evolution of the transportation sector, based on the evolution of the technologies, based on the requirements of our customer. Today, we arrived to the latest solution launched in 2022, and there will be another release also launched in 2023. Today objectives, together with Westernacher SAP, is to let you understand how to move from, let's say, previous solution to have the latest and greatest version of SAP Transportation Management. With that said, I hand over to Yogesh that will go a little bit deeper in the details. Yogesh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. So, as we are now moving into let's say a deeper look, yeah. So as Andrea mentioned that there is a continuous evolution. SAP is adding additional topics, use cases, business processes with the new releases. So I would like you to take you with a let's say a deep dive in the functionalities which might not be available in case you do not have let's say SAP, or if you are working with SAP's older versions versus what are the new functionalities you can gain when you either implement the SAP transportation management latest version or you move from older to new version. So here I have a kind of a comparison. Yeah. So SAP Elytra. So the audience which is not aware of this particular terminology. So in the older version, as Andrea mentioned, when SAP started, let's say from 1998 onwards as well. So there was a provision of transportation management version in the logistics execution submodule. Yeah. So there are definitely some possibilities or functionalities available which have been, let's say, merged as well as enhanced in the SAP transportation management version. So if I start comparing one to one from the verticals or the building blocks perspective or the business processes, so from a strategic planning perspective, there were no functionalities available to analyze to make let's say a strategic plan from a transportation freight procurement perspective. Yeah. So when I say no possibility, there was no integration available about your forecasting mechanism, about your spend analysis, how you can basically leverage the data about your friend spends, or maybe upcoming forecast plans from your let's say purchase order or sales orders from and to the customers. That additionally brings us into having the additional functionalities like the integration with the IBP, SAP IBP, which is the integrated business planning, wherein we can definitely receive your forecast values, trends, and based on that, the transportation capacity can be then negotiated with your let's say service providers. So the historical demands and forecast either coming from your demand system, operational planning system, can be integrated within SAP, and based on that, the long-term tenders can be then initiated towards your carrier. So this all functionality is something which is, let's say, an value add to the freight procurement perspective. Yeah, you can create the tenders, you can have the responses updated from the carrier side, as well as the rate comparison, and then the nomination as well as awarding of this contract. When I talk about the actual operations planning, yeah, so the older versions were able to integrate the delivery data. That means it is, let's say, at a very late in time of the freight processing. So when you have a confirmed quantities, when you have your deliveries getting created based on the stock availabilities, then only you would be able to use this information within your freight procurement or transportation planning. Yeah, with now it is possible that at the order level, a pre-planning can be initiated. So you can plan your transportation based on your orders as well as with the deliveries, which are tightly integrated with your ERP systems. You can also use the optimizer engine, the one of the brain from the SAP's transportation management system, which will help you to perform a right carrier selection based on your different strategies, business share, route optimization, interactive planning using the Gantt chart, as well as the map and, let's say, GIS integration if it has got any, let's say, geographical constraints. Moving to the transportation execution, what we gain out of the recent, let's say, modules or the versions is the freight collaboration option, the global track and trace possibilities using business network for logistics. So you might be hearing about the SAP LBN, Logistics Business Network, and this is so it has got a new name called Business Network for Logistics, with the same functionalities as well as the additional functionalities, like the more let's say tracking possibilities, more interaction possibilities, wherein carriers can be pre-onboarded, and these carriers are then part of your network, can also participate on the acceptance confirmation of your freight orders or shipments assigned to them. They can communicate the milestone tracking. They can also provide you the information from the self billing perspective. Delays, dispute management processes also can be then handled out of this collaboration option. There are also possibilities that you can directly integrate with your warehousing systems, and that's where the transport execution has, let's say, I would say, an additional possibilities if I compare it with the older versions. I think freight settlement part or cost part was limited in the older versions. Here we get a possibility of using the contracts which you have negotiated based on your strategic planning. These contracts become the basis for your the orders which can be charged or the calculated automatically, and then this information can integrated with your finance module hand in hand. So in older version, it used to be just a one I would say factor, that these are my freight costs, but now with the latest versions you are able to communicate at a individual aspect or dimension of your freight charges. For example, you can have a separate lines as well as the management for the nitty gritty of the charges. For example, be it a base freight, be it custom duties, be it let's say the any let's say fuel surcharges. One of the advantage also which the recent version can bring in is you can pass on these freight charges or nitty gritties to the final element within the ERP. For example, those can be automatically passed to the original sales orders or maybe at the material ledger level. Yeah, that's the cost distribution benefit we can gain out of it. And last not the least, I think analytics part. Yeah, so the older versions definitely have a reporting mechanism, but the newer version bring in you the real time analytics, so there is no lag. You can operate with your business KPIs, and based on that you can take a control out of it. So in older version it is kind of a post facto analysis, but here we are talking about new way of working, wherein I set my KPIs about my deliveries, about my pickups, about my OTIF with my carrier, and I can immediately work with those KPIs with a real time data, whether a particular region, geography, carrier, uh, or maybe plant is operating with that KPI or not, or what actions or counter actions I have to tech against it. So one of the use case also could be with the upcoming trend about the sustainability. You can also work with the KPIs, and you can bring back those information in your route planning, in your mode of transport selection. So to balance your sustainability KPIs with maybe finance KPIs, how to balance my freight spends based on the route selection, and the impact can be immediately, let's say, compared in the analytics. So these are the, I would say, a very tip of a iceberg. When I say from a value adds perspective, there are more when we go into nitty gritties from the application or processes perspective. So when I move or when I understand that there is a let's say there could be a reason why I should move to the newest version or latest version. uh, the question would be how I would move, what are the processes, how the journey can be onboarded for the movement. Yeah, and then definitely there could be several actors behind it. So do I need to just move from my older technical setup or the IT landscape and bring it to the new one, or do I also start considering, let's say, what are the new business innovations I can bring in from a process perspective in this let's say aspect of the movement. So that's the transformation we are now calling here. Yeah, so when when I just move from my older version likewise to the new version, definitely there is a chance that you could lag some advanced processes which you might have, let's say, not foreseen 10, 20 years back when the older version was implemented. So whether I should do also a process enhancements around it, or just the technical conversion, or I should start with both business as well as technical conversion, or I just do a technical conversion first and then later start with the business innovation. So these are definitely some of the factors we should consider when the conversion can be initiated. As mentioned, so there could be variety of conversion scenarios. Yeah, so do I just do a system conversion? So I do have, let's say, a transportation management system with the older version, or I have to just move it to the latest version of S4, as Andrea explained us. So this is maybe a newer version, latest stack of the database, which brings you an additional benefits, or a complete landscape transformation. So this could be one of the discussion point, or a decision point which has to be considered. From a technical conversion perspective, we can think of whether from the Elytra to S4 TM, so transportation management, either side by side or standalone, or embedded move has to be done. Would I just make a move with my current processes, with current enhancements, or I think there is uh, uh, a definitely value add if you consider what are the latest trends, what are the latest benefits, and should I change my processes to adhere to the latest, so that maybe the old processes which were working 10, 20 years back are also could be a simplified or in a better integrated way I could attain out of my newer, let's say, processes in latest version. So that could be a functional or technical, I would say, migration or transformation, which also can be thought through. If I am into a let's say a older version within TM, transportation management, should I move it to the latest version? There are different, let's say, ways how we can think of, and whether I have to make a move from my side by side version to the embedded version. So these are definitely some technical conversion scenarios which can be discussed when we start moving into this direction. So when someone is interested, or any of the customer is interested in typically this migration or movements, how we as a Westernacher would see it is basically we can definitely apply the best practices coming from SAP. We can apply some let's say add-ons based on the individual customers, let's say best practices, as well as the unique requirement. So this is one of the study which can be performed, which definitely benefit the customer by shortening the implementation of timelines, the total cost of the implementation as in program. It could be that stabilizing the processes quicker instead of doing it from scratch. Yeah, so there are certain benefits which we could consider here. So what a typical approach we can use? Yeah, so we can definitely come up with a service called S4 transition as a service, wherein a typical sandbox conversion can be can be let's say converted, or it can be implemented in a typical period of a 90 days. Yeah, so that's the fastest you could achieve when the service can be applied. So first we understand what is the scope, what approach can be applied, and then what are the use cases which we can basically bring in this 90 days package. And then the customers can definitely gain the understanding how the conversion would look like, or a migration would look like, and then how to move ahead with the production conversion or migration. Yeah, so that's, we are talking about a transition as a service assessment. Yeah, so wherein we definitely first understand what are the necessities of the migration, which tools can be used, if there is a possibility of any manual activities. From a scoping perspective, what the functional technical changes are needed, if there are any infrastructural changes, any additional process changes might also can be discovered in this particular assessment. And then the outcome could be also what are the impacts on the your business processes. So basically the outcome is what my different applications, or which are the applications are impacted, which level 3 level 4 processes we need to consider from the impact analysis, and what are the different maybe ways of working we have to let's say adhere if we are moving to the new version. So that's basically the assessment also can be conducted, and this assessment definitely becomes maybe a stepping stone to move into the migration activities. Yeah, so typically this could be a simple, let's say, waterfall approach. Yeah, wherein this transition as a service also can be then considered from a preparation, actual migration, the post migration, and then the documentation. So this can become one of the, let's say, assessment plus the migration as a service, which can let's say give us a sandbox ready I would say, a mock-up which you could consider for your production environment migration, and that becomes the basis for you. So how do we typically start with it? Yeah, so there are, again, we can offer different approaches here. So there could be an inspiration day where we can understand the customer's current situation, whether you are on a Elytra, whether it's an older version, maybe 9.0, 9.2, or it could be the latest version, but it is in a side-by-side scenario. So that's the first thing can be understood, and then what are the benefits if we move to the latest version is something we can derive out of inspiration day, wherein the outcome could be what could be the high level solution, how a vision can be established, and whether we should basically start with a pilot or not. These are the let's say indicators the customers can gain out of this. The alternative approach could be the going ahead with the business case or pilot scoping workshop. So this is like a detailed process understanding, and then come up with a high level design, and it could be then basically used for your deriving a project plan, deriving maybe a finding out which let's say parameters should be considered, or which all interested parties should be called out in case if we want to move ahead with any migration or transformation. Another approach which is also becoming a very popular kind of a safe approach, which also customers prefer, is to go ahead with the proof of concept or minimum viable product implementation. Yeah, so typically when there is any transformation is foreseen, definitely there is a change management have to be applied, and the biggest role player are the end users. And touching the system or looking not the mock-up but the scenarios which are convenient, which are let's say frequently used by the customers, these are the ones if they can see in the system and have that confidence built with the proof of concept. I think that gives a let's say a better picture to the users, and from a down to up, bottom up, let's say perspective, the confidence is already built. So it is also possible that we run with a POC or proof of concept or MVP, minimum viable product implementation, and that can also give us a let's say a picture how the solution would look like based on the proof points, and also there could be some recommendations about the deployment, how the project plan would look, what could be a typical implementation timeline, if we are talking about the MVP, or it could be the full blown solution. That also something which can be chalked out of this POC concept. How do we enable basically the customers to start with this journey? Yeah, so it could be that some of the new words, jargons which I am already using here, like standalone, embedded, TM, uh, you are the customer is basically comfortable with a word called shipment, but now I'm mentioning about something called freight order. So how do we enable the customer as well as the interested parties to be part of and using a same language? So here definitely we can offer various trainings coming out of let's say the processes or the scope of the audience, and that's we call as a enablement boot camp, yeah, where the customer or the interested parties are already part of the journey. They can understand how SAP TM can work with what are the different modalities, what are the different nomenclatures, and the process mapping within the new TM environment. So that's basically how we can how we can onboard the customer, the way how it helps the customers, what we have seen over the period of time is these enablement boot camps are already setting a let's say mindset in the customers or key users mind about what could be my solution, what could be my to be processes. And definitely this can be then related during, let's say, the testing phases. So it is not just helping to start the journey, but it also helps to understand and has a positive impact in your later phases of the project. So that also can be something which can be enabled, and then we start working with let's say different variety of approaches, be it maybe inspiration day, be it maybe the MVP or pilot scoping workshops or proof of concept development. So that is how we would like to let's say take the customer hand in hand and offer let's say these services once we start working with them. So with this, I would now like to hand it over to Patrick, who can explain us his successful journey about transportation management with S4.
Thank you, Yogesh, and also welcome from my end. My name is Patrick. Today I have the opportunity to talk about our recent TM S4 conversion project together with SAP as well as Westernacher. So therefore, I provided this agenda. So first of all, I want to give you a brief introduction, who is Sappi and what we are basically doing. Then as a second step, I want to give you an idea how we use TM, or how we used TM in the past and what were the main reasons for us to move to the new S4 version. And then we do a little bit more detailed topics on our project concepts and how we tackled it. And then last but not least, I can give you some of my personal highlights as well as challenges we faced throughout the project. And then at the very end, I'm also happy to answer all your possible questions. Good, then let's start with who is Sappi? Who are we? So Sappi is a leading global provider of everyday materials made from wood fiber-based renewable resources. So at Sappi, we have more than 12,000 employees working, which are spread across 35 countries and 3 continents, which are North America, Europe, as well as Africa. We have 19 production facilities, which are divided into 10 out of Western Europe, 4 in North America, as well as 5 in South Africa. These mills, they produce different products. So on the raw material side, we create dissolving pulp, wood pulp, as well as other biomaterials. From an end-use products perspective, we range from packaging and specialty papers to graphic papers, casting and release papers, and other different forestry products. All our products are basically manufactured from wood fiber sourced from sustainably managed forests and plantations. And all these production facilities are powered with bioenergy from steam and existing waste stream, which leads to the fact that many of our operations are energy self-sufficient, where we are really proud of. From our production capability perspective, so we produce round about 5.5 million tons of paper per year. From a paper pulp perspective, it's round about the half, so 2.6 million tons per year. And from a dissolving pulp perspective, we produce 1.5 million tons each and every year. For those of you who are interested and would like to learn more about Sappi and what we do, I also shared the link to our company's homepage, and feel free to have a look afterwards. Good. So let me explain you in more detail how we used TM in the past. Yeah, where do we come from, and what was our main goal to move to a new TM S4 environment. So basically, as we saw on the previous slides already, we came from a classical three-tier TM 9.5 installation. So we had a development system, a quality system, as well as a productive system, which were implemented in early 2018. Yeah. So throughout these years, this TM solution has been implemented mainly in our European regional distribution centers, which can be found in Italy, Germany, as well as Belgium, and also in our South African RDCs, plus in the meantime, all of the South African mills. Yeah. So this is where we came from. As we also heard before, TM offers a wide variety of possibilities how you can plan your transports, and here I think we use basically the complete range. Yeah? So we have modes of transports in the rail area as well as road area and sea area. Yeah? So we are really doing not only local but also global transportation planning with TM. Additionally, what we have also used in our old installation as well as in the new one is the so-called collaboration portal in South Africa, which our colleagues use in order to interact with local hauliers, yeah, to get their local road transports done in the African area. So what were our main motivations to do the TM/S4 migration? Basically, the system was a bit outdated, right? So the system version was TM 9.5. I think the last version was TM 9.6 before it became an S4 version. So the system was really outdated, and from time to time, to get the latest innovations in, bug fixes and all of these things, we were constantly facing the issue or the action of implementing S nodes. So this was one of the main drivers, as well as the end of support of the current TM 9.5 solution, which is to my knowledge by 2027. And we wanted to aim for a more future-proof solution. Yeah? Also from a performance perspective, so in the old TM system, we had quite a bunch of custom developments, which lead in certain areas to performance topics, which we also wanted to resolve during the S4 conversion. And then, as said, the main initiative, or one of the main initiatives, really was to build a future-proof platform for other global initiatives. So at Sappi, we have the Thrive 25 initiative, which is our global business strategy, which conclude a large variety of different projects. And especially when it comes to our IT SAP strategy, as you can see, we have only European RDCs and South African RDCs and mills implemented, but we also have North American locations and a lot of other European locations, which we will now constantly bring to the new TM version. And this was also one of our main drivers to upgrade the system before, and then constantly over the next couple of years implement all these other locations with the latest TM version. Basically, from a project concept and strategy perspective, as said, we were coming from a TM 9.5 installation, and we are moving to an TM S4 2020 Service Pack 2 installation. Yeah? So there might be the question, why didn't we choose the latest version? So when we started, there was already a 2021 version available, but our main motivation here was, and here we also had some feedback from our Westernacher consultants, that it makes sense to keep the TM S4 system in sync with the release level of our ERP S4 system. So that being said, this means we went for a side-by-side installation. So we haven't implemented an embedded TM version on our core S4 system. So we really have an side-by-side solution where we operate on 2 separate S4 systems. We went for the decision to do a big bang go live. So we had basically, before we started with the real project, we had some assessment project together with the Westernacher consultants, where we built an environment like a sandbox, as we heard before from Yogesh, to see how we can transition in the most efficient way from our old system landscape to the new one. So basically we had 2 scenarios in mind. So one was the one which we went for, which is the transactional data migration one, but we also thought about the scenario where we keep the old system landscape and the new system landscape in parallel and slowly transition over. But during this phase, we figured out that the approach with the less risk is really the big bang, where we take all the locations live at the same date and do a full transactional data migration to copy over all the documents from the old system to the new one. And then after go live, we shut down the old system. Yeah, we also agreed that we basically do not do some harmonization. Yeah, so our motivation really was the technical conversion. Yeah, so we migrated all of our customizings, all of our custom code, and due to the transactional data migration, obviously all the transactional documents. Yeah, not only the open ones but also the closed ones. From an maybe innovation perspective, we implemented a Fiori embedded server on our new TM S4 installation in order to run the collaboration portal. Yeah. Then also we did an upgrade of the SCM optimizer engine to version 14, which we do not really utilize that much, but in the future we also plan to use it for automated plannings in the rail area. Then another thing we had to change, obviously, from a master data integration perspective is the core interface was replaced by the so-called data replication framework. What we also decided, in order to limit the complexity as well as the change from a user perspective, is that we are still on NetWeaver Business Client. Yeah, so we didn't want to use the Fiori frontend on the S4 system. So we are still operating on NetWeaver Business Client, which is also possible on the S4 version of TM. Yeah, and then last but not least, from a stakeholder perspective, so these are the 3 parties which worked on the project, which is Sappi, obviously. So we are the customer in this case. We took place of made sure that the overall project governance is on our side. We took care of the project management as well as the coordination of testing and some supporting activities from an techie perspective. Yeah. Then we also had support from the Westernacher team, which mainly took care of the system preparation. So they did all of the needed customizings, and they also took care of the custom code and master data migration. Yeah. So they were really the ones executing the migration tool and copying over all the data from the old system landscape to the new one. But they also did necessary adjustments also to our custom code, which was outdated due to the move to the S4 version. And for sure, consulting wherever needed. So whenever we had a question, we could easily reach out and get their support and feedback. Then we also had parties from SAP. So it was the SAP SLT team, which mainly took care of the transactional data migration throughout the project. That being said, let's jump to the next section. So now I want to give you some idea how we did this project, from a timeline and task perspective. So as said, we started basically with an assessment project, which took us round about 2 or 3 months, in late 2021. During this phase, we implemented a sandbox, or more or less our future development system, where we basically did the exact same steps as we did later on in the project. So we set it up, we did all the necessary customizings. The Westernacher team copied over all the master data as well as customizings and did the custom code adjustments. And this was then really the starting point for us to figure out what is the best approach we can go for later on for the productive migration. As said, for us, it was then clear that we have to go with a Big Bang scenario where all our locations go live at the same time, and we're doing a full transactional data migration because we saw some issues with the coexistence phase where both old and new system would have been active in parallel, because we would lose the possibility of merging different sales orders on the same trucks if certain order items go to the new or to the old system landscape. And that's why we went for this transactional data migration approach. So basically, we started after the assessment project, so some time has passed, and we really started in July last year, so 2022, on the development system with some finalization tasks. Yeah. So as said, during the assessment project, we really had not only a sandbox system, which is not usable any longer. So we really had an usable system, which then became our development system. So this process, as you can see, took us round about 2 months and started with a system copy. So you will see this throughout the other timelines on the quality and productive system as well, that always it follows the same procedure where we start with a system copy to get the latest data from the productive system into the development system. And then we're basically doing the transactional data migration, which has the positive effect that you have the latest information in your system, and then it's a bit easier to verify the data or migration quality. So once the development system was more or less finalized, we always did a restore point, so an additional backup, just in case there's any issue with the migration that we can easily roll back. And then we did the first transactional data migration on the development system. You see, it took a bit more time for this first transactional data migration because the SAP migration team, they really had to build all the mappings. So they had to map all the tables from TM 9.5 to the S4 tables, and all these conversion rules had to be applied. That's why the first transactional data migration took a bit longer. After this transactional data migration, we started to do some unit testing on the development system, as well as a very long period of data verification, in order to understand the quality of the migration. Did we migrate all the documents we wanted, and do they all have the same state and quantities assigned as they had before the migration? After this was done, we have foreseen a second cycle, a second migration cycle on the development system, but this was just due to security reasons of as fallback scenario. In case the migration would have failed in first place, then we would have done a second one. But I can tell you, we didn't do it because the first one was quite successful. Then looking further on the timeline, you see the queue system also started with a system copy. So we copied the old system landscape from production down to the queue system, again to have the latest transactional documents available. And then we started again to build basically or prepare the quality system to be ready for migration. So during this time, most of the work was done, as said, by our Westernacher colleagues, who took care of all the customizings, master data loads, adjustments to custom code, etc. Good. Once this is done, we again had the same approach. So we did a restore point to make sure all of the valuable work is not lost in case something fails during the migration. And then we handed over the system to SAP in the mid of December last year. Yeah, and you see when we compare the transactional data migration period with the development system, the time the time period to do it has dramatically reduced from, I think in first place it was like 6 to 8 weeks, and then we only reserved a 2 weeks window for them to do the second migration cycle due to the learnings and the mappings which have been in place. Yeah, once this has been done, we went for an well-deserved Christmas holiday, and then starting in the new year of 2023, we did 1 month of integration testing where our internal IT team did most of their tests, also with our EWM system and all the other surrounding systems. Yeah. And then we kicked off after that the user acceptance and testing, as well as the training phase. But where we have to say, from a training perspective, it was really limited because we went for the same user interface, for the same front end, and it was more on the master data integration perspective and more specific changes to the collaboration portal. Yeah. Throughout the time, we also organized a light freeze phase that we don't have too many changes going into the old system landscape any longer, which brings us directly to the productive system, which was provisioned in late Jan of 2023. And then again, as you see, we followed the same procedure. The productive system was built in order to be ready for migration. We saved all of our work, then went into a development freeze phase, and then the long-awaited go live weekend was reached by mid of April this year. The go live weekend was basically spread throughout the whole weekend from Friday till Sunday. On Friday, we basically started at 5 p.m. to isolate our TM system from the surrounding systems. Because we still had business operations throughout the weekend, which was also a bit tricky. But luckily, together with Westernacher, we were also able to resolve this situation very well. Yeah, we decoupled the system on Friday evening, and then on Friday night, we handed over the system to SAP for their migration activities, which took them, so we reserved in general 24 hours for them to do the migration, but it only took them around about 11 hours to load all the transactional documents to the new system. And then on Sunday, early Sunday, we started with the data verification process where we checked all of the open documents. As said, do they have the right state? Do they have the right quantity? And all of these things. Followed by a synchronization phase, since we had some updates throughout the weekend, which should go into the TM system, but which have been queued, so we had to resend them to the new TM system to make sure that all the documents have the latest information available. Once this was done, we got the sign-off from our business team that everything was fine. And from that onwards, we transitioned into a 3 weeks hypercare phase, where we also had great support from SAP as well as Westernacher. Good, so last but not least, let me give you a brief overview of my highlights as well as the challenges throughout the project. So really, one of my highlights was it was a complete remote project. Yeah. So to be honest, I only met our Westernacher consultants once in person. Yeah, at the very beginning when we started to plan the project and how does everything work out. And the other steps, the complete go live weekend and everything else, we did completely remote. Yeah. Same goes for the SAP team. So I never met these guys in person, but at the end it worked out very, very well without any issues. Another highlight or another point which really led to the overall success of this project was the change management activities we did throughout the project, all the risk assessments, all the follow-ups, and also the commitment of all the stakeholders throughout the different parties involved really made this project a big success. Then another thing I want to highlight, where also the Westernacher colleagues are responsible for, is that we really had no incidents left out of the UAT before we started the go live weekend. So this was our goal. It was a tough one because I can tell you we had a lot of incidents, but together we really made it and ensured a real smooth go live. So as said, there were business operations throughout the whole weekend. We had a lot of updates coming into the system, but luckily we were able to manage it and call it a successful go live. The only thing which I wanted to highlight as a bit of a challenge is really the synchronization phase we had, because in this case we underestimated a bit the amount of updates we are generating throughout such a weekend, which led to a slight delay. But again, everyone put in their full commitment and everyone did their best, and we also managed this stressful phase throughout the go live weekend. That being said, I'm quite happy that we had the Westernacher team as implementation partner, because as said, we could have reached out to them at any time and get their best feedback possible, and they were really experienced and supportive people from their organization. So thank you from my end, and I'd like to hand it over to Yogesh again.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Andrea, for these detailed wordings, as well as walking us through the evolution cycle, as well as the journey of SAP migration at Sappi. It was really exciting to understand these topics. Yeah, so as a conclusion or a key takeaways, I would like to basically reiterate from also our first episode, and now as we heard, so transforming to latest SAP TM can definitely enable customers to make the informed decisions to let's say attain the balance, the customer service versus delivery cost, have the right let's say real-time operational insights, track and trace milestones, enable them to achieve and work with the exceptional processes, just the management by exceptions, reduction in the transportation or freight cost, and not the let's say that the most important is the end-to-end process monitoring and the sustainability. So with Westernacher's proven methodologies, SAP supports the standard tools for the migration. We can definitely achieve the streamlined, hassle-free transformation. And we are happy to serve you, support you. You can contact us for a free inspiration day for understanding what value SAP TM can bring within your organization's supply chain. So feel free to contact us to Westernacher, to SAP, and also to Patrick if any specific, let's say, KPIs need to be understood out of this journey. With this, I would like to thank all of you for joining this. If you have any questions, please feel free to write us in the chat or also in the contact us via email, and then we will be happy to get back to you. Thank you. Have a successful day.